the mob boss who got away with everything. In the shadows of Chicago's darkest alleys, there was a man. You never heard him coming. You never saw him leave. And yet, every corner feared his name. John No-Nose DiFronzo. He wasn't loud. He wasn't reckless, he didn't bathe in blood like Capone, but he ruled, quietly, brutally, completely. This is the story of the mob boss who did the impossible. He rose to the top, murdered in cold blood, and died a free man. But make no mistake, his story is soaked in fear, silence, and blood. Born in smoke, raised in shadow Chicago, 1928. A brutal winter howled through the city streets. Brick walls wept frost, alleys echoed with hunger, and the snow-blanketed bodies the cops didn't find fast enough. In a cramped Italian tenement on the west side, a baby was born. His cries were weak, almost unwilling, as if even he knew this world was no place for innocence. His name, John DiFronzo. But one day, the world would know him by a far darker name, No-Nose. Before he ever held a gun, he saw the world through the cracks of boarded windows. He watched men in suits disappear into storefronts that never sold anything. He learned early, power didn't wear uniforms. It wore silence. John was born into poverty, but not ignorance. His father, a rough, streetwise Italian laborer, kept his head low and his fists ready. His mother, quiet, devout, but hardened by life. They came to America seeking hope. What they found instead was crime, corruption, and survival. Chicago in the 1930s wasn't just a city. It was a battlefield. And John, he became a soldier long before he could spell the word. A city of blood and opportunity, at just 9 years old, John ran errands for neighborhood toughs. He carried numbers, passed envelopes, delivered warnings. The mob didn't scare him. They fascinated him. These were men who never flinched, never begged, never waited in bread lines. By the 1940s, Chicago was still bleeding from prohibition. The Capones and Torrios had made the outfit famous, but the real power now lay underground, deeper, colder. The city was controlled not by bullets, but by contracts, labor unions, concrete, construction, and John DiFronzo was watching it all. He wasn't reckless like other boys. He was quiet, calculated. While others got caught stealing tires, John learned how to steal trust, and trust in the outfit was a far more valuable currency than cash. The nose, the blood, the name. It happened during a jewelry store robbery in the early 1950s. DiFronzo was in his 20s, quick on his feet, and already feared by many. But that night, something went wrong. A silent alarm tripped. The cops closed in. John ran through a maze of alleys, black ice beneath his boots, until he dove through a plate glass window in a desperate escape. The glass didn't just cut him, it nearly ripped his nose off. Blood everywhere. His screams echoed down the street. Doctors saved his life, but his face was never the same. He returned to the outfit with bandages and stitches, and they gave him a name that would stick for life. No-Nose. Most men would have crumbled under the humiliation. Not John, he owned it, turned it into myth. The name became a whisper in Chicago's darkest places, a symbol of pain, fear, and absolute control. Building the invisible empire. By the late 1960s, DiFronzo had mastered the real game, construction racketeering. While other gangsters pulled triggers, John pulled strings. He infiltrated unions, threatened contractors, and made millions through fraudulent bidding, extortion, and silent takeovers. Every time a building went up in Chicago, DiFronzo made money. Every union contract passed through hands he either owned or destroyed. He wasn't showy. He didn't flash rings or drive Ferraris, that wasn't his style. He was the ghost in the system. The man who smiled at cops, waved at neighbors, and murdered men without ever lifting a finger, and the outfit loved him for it. The Spilotro brothers, murder in the basement, June 1986. Two brothers walked into a basement and were never seen alive again. Tony the Ant Spilotro was feared in Vegas, a pit bull with a gun. His brother Michael was loyal, clean, and in over his head. But Tony had made mistakes. Drawn too much heat. Got greedy. And when the bosses decided it was time, DiFronzo was there to make it happen. The brothers were told it was a meeting, a chance to clear the air. Instead, it was a trap. As soon as they entered, fists flew. They were beaten, not shot. That was the message. Slow, painful death. Tony watched Michael die. Michael watched Tony die. And DiFronzo. He never blinked. Their bodies were buried in an Indiana cornfield discovered weeks later. Years later, mob informant Nick Calabrese swore under oath, John was there. He helped kill them. But even with that confession, John was never charged, never tried, never touched. The untouchable era by the 1990s, most of DiFronzo's enemies were dead, missing, or behind bars. But John, he was running the show, quietly, carefully, perfectly. He ran a crew out of Elmwood Park, controlling loan sharking, illegal gambling, union fraud, auto theft rings, extortion rackets, but he never left fingerprints. He communicated through trusted lieutenants, no phones, no tapes, no slips. Federal prosecutors hated him. They called him the Ghost because no matter how much evidence they had, nothing stuck. In 1993, he was indicted for extortion, threatening contractors who refused to play ball. It seemed like they finally had him. But a legal technicality on how the surveillance was obtained. Case dismissed. He walked out of court smiling. Again. The silent throne and the secrets that tried to bury him. By the early 2000s, John DiFronzo had survived what few mobsters ever do. Not just war, betrayal, and prison, but time. He was a relic, a legend. One of the last living architects of Chicago's underworld. But what John didn't see coming was a ghost from within. Operation Family Secrets, the Outfit's Day of Reckoning 2005. The FBI launched the most explosive mob investigation in Chicago's history, Operation Family Secrets. It was named not for irony, but because the Outfit's collapse wouldn't come from outsiders. It would come from their own blood. Enter Frank Calabrese Jr., son of Outfit enforcer Frank the Breeze Calabrese Sr., a made man, a killer, a father, now betrayed by his own child. Frank Jr. handed over hundreds of letters, recordings, and testimony to the FBI, names, places, victims, and among those names, John DiFronzo. The operation linked him directly to the Spilotro murders. It connected his crew to 18 unsolved hits, extortion, racketeering, and more. But here's the catch. They still couldn't touch him. The feds needed hard evidence. And DiFronzo? He was too careful, too silent, too smart. Every phone call was filtered, every meeting off the books, every conversation layered in code. Even when mob turncoats testified against him in federal court, prosecutors couldn't put together a solid enough case. While Frank Sr. and Joey the Clown Lombardo went to prison for life, DiFronzo stayed free. The Coldest Crime, DiFronzo's Final Kill 2008. In the freezing streets of Chicago, whispers grew louder. Something was happening behind the scenes. An old associate, Anthony Zizzo, vanished. Zizzo had been a high-ranking Outfit figure, trusted, respected. But when rumors surfaced that he might cooperate with federal agents, he disappeared. No body, no witness, no trace. FBI sources believed it was a sanctioned hit, ordered to prevent leaks. And at the top of the suspicion list, John No-Knows DiFronzo. But there were no tapes, no trails. Just one more soul swallowed by Chicago's concrete graveyard. The ghost dims, decline, isolation, and shadows by the 2010s. DiFronzo wasn't the man he once was. His body began to betray him. He suffered from Alzheimer's disease, a slow, devastating erosion of memory. One of the sharpest minds in organized crime, now couldn't remember what he had for breakfast. But don't mistake his frailty for vulnerability. Even in decline, no one dared challenge him. No one spoke his name without fear. He still lived in a modest house in River Grove, Illinois, a quiet neighborhood where retirees walked dogs and kids rode bikes. But behind those blinds was a man who'd outlived his enemies, silenced witnesses, and outwitted the FBI for half a century. Death of a Phantom, May 27, 2018. The news came with a whisper, not a bang. John No-Nose DiFronzo was dead. He died of complications from cancer at 89 years old. There was no shootout, no grand trial, no final confession. He died in peace, something he never gave his enemies. No official obituary spoke of his crimes. No memorial honored the victims buried under his empire. But across Chicago, in hushed voices and darkened bars, people remembered he was the last of the real ones. He was the outfit's ghost. He made blood disappear. A legacy written in fear. John DiFronzo didn't invent violence. He mastered the art of hiding it. He didn't shoot first. He listened, waited, crushed you without leaving fingerprints. He taught the outfit how to survive without making headlines, how to bleed cities without drawing blood in public, and while Al Capone rotted in Alcatraz, while Spilotro was beaten to death in a basement, while Joey the Clown died in prison, DiFronzo walked free. He left behind no public trail, no memoir, no apology, just a legacy drenched in silence. And for those who dared to remember his name too loudly, they remembered one thing above all: you don't have to pull a trigger to be a killer. Sometimes, all you need is a phone call. In the end, John No-Nose DiFronzo didn't disappear. He simply faded, like a ghost, leaving behind a city still haunted by the man who taught the mob how to vanish in plain sight.
The case may be closed, but criminology never sleeps. Like and subscribe to join Criminology and step deeper into the dark with us.